the American work ethic is if you're happy, you're slacking. That means you're doing something wrong. And to me, that is the most outrageously wrong-headed concept on the planet. Yes, you can use people up and spit them out and, ring this, but imagine what you could have gotten from them. Yeah. Imagine if they stayed with you. Exactly. Imagine if they wanted to, if they felt, dignity and empowerment, what they can do for you. It seems so elementary to me, but at once it's also so antithetical to how we view ourselves as workers. If we're not at least a bit stressed and a bit unhappy, are we really doing our best?
Welcome back to another edition here on Mentory TV. And today we talk about women entrepreneurs, women in business, and the realm of publishing. I invited Leslie Ann Miller, aka LAM, to the show. She is an expert. She's the CEO and co-founder of Girl Friday Productions. She's a speaker, an author, and somebody you really want to turn to when you, as a female, have questions about building your own career path, and also as any kind of individual when you want to go into publishing, especially self-publishing. LAM, so great to have you here on Mentory TV.
Thank you for having me. It is a delight to be here.
Okay, let's make this delightful because a million questions already go through my head. And let's go into the deep end and let's talk between woman to woman, woman in business to woman in business, entrepreneur to entrepreneur. What is the situation right now? If you had to give us a little bit of a broader picture, where are we as female entrepreneurs right now?
Well, if you listen to the news and the reports, it seems like we're really having our moment. I know that in the United States, female entrepreneurship, especially during COVID, skyrocketed. And I think COVID taught us a lot of lessons about the strictures and bonds of a traditional corporate work environment, and what many of us had been saying and have been saying for decades, which is this gives us a lot of really terrible choices to make that we don't feel we have to make, that you can be an incredible business person and be ambitious and creative and powerful and be an amazing mother, an amazing partner, an amazing person out in the world. You certainly don't have to have a family. You can be doing service in your community. You can be doing self-care. So I think for so long, it has been this sort of male-dominated structure that was handed down to us, which said you were at work, you were a different person at work, none of your personal life comes in at work. And so many of us have said, why? Why? And just done something differently and seen success and seen people really grow and blossom. And so I think, to me, that is one of the only gifts of COVID, which is obviously horrible, but the fact that it finally maybe has dealt this blow to this idea of how we think about business women, business people, families, including for men. And I'm really hoping this is the start of something new.
Okay, so what has shifted most when you say COVID has been a blessing, especially for females in a male-structured work environment? What has shifted the most?
I think the recognition that all of us need and want balance. And obviously, it wasn't all roses for those of us who were at home on Zoom, but people had children crawling over them. They didn't have childcare. They had people out of school. They had, they didn't have a space. So it wasn't idyllic by any means, but we also saw men put in the same position. And after we've sort of recalibrated, where many of us, at least in the States, started working at all hours and went to an unhealthy place, even though we were working at home, we've seen people now, and certainly I'm hiring right now, and people, this is a question that they ask, and they say, will I have flexibility? Do I have to go into the office all the time? What are the requirements? Do you expect me to be on during the weekend? And my answers to those are vehemently yes, yes, and absolutely no. But the fact that more people feel empowered and that it's a strong job market, and so people are able to make these decisions and factor that in, I think that is a blessing. That, my husband works at a very large tech company, which had said in the beginning, no, remote work, it just doesn't work for us. Well, it does. And he is not anxious to go back into the office. And he's worked there for 25 years, and he's in our basement right now. And, and it's actually, he works with teams internationally, and now everyone is in an equal place. It's not the people in the conference room having bonding and small talk, and then the person who's on the camera being left out. So I think those are some of the gifts.
I like that. I'm just imagining it. Of course, we are now all equal because we have Zoom. Okay. Yes, but there is the husband in the dungeons in the cellar, and there is Lamb up in the Rapunzel. But hey, I can just imagine. It's fantastic. Yeah, my husband works at home, but he's down in the cellar.
He's down in the cellar. He's down in the cellar. Wailing away.
I think the interesting aspect, and I feel it's somehow the same from just an observant and point of view, and it's really anecdotal, Lam. But what you were just saying really strikes a chord with me, because somehow, because we had to work from home, now men also are requesting for the balance, which was always kind of us women asking for 50% work or 80% or half day off, because we have to look after the children and the household and maybe sickish, oldish parents. All of a sudden, now we have men actually seeing, hey, you know what? There is value in that kind of model.
Absolutely. And just seeing that invisible work. Some still have amazing powers to tune out everything around them, but a lot is going on. And if you're in the middle of that, and we're so used to balancing it, and just like there's a child over there and I'm still working, but for them to be like, wait a minute, you've been doing that the whole time, and now I'm doing that. And it's, and I think for us to fully succeed as women, it's going to, both genders need to be involved. I mean, all genders need to be involved. And so it really needs to be a restructuring of how we think about people and work and who we are outside of work and in our communities.
Yeah. And right at the beginning, Lam, and that struck with me, is you said we can be amazing people at work. And you also said it was an undone thing to bring your personal life into work because that's unprofessional. Yeah. To what extent do you actually feel that is now, these are kind of no-nos or taboos that have started to soften up? And what would the added value be, you think?
I mean, the amount of work that it takes to not be yourself is phenomenal. And so imagine someone not concentrating on the fact, on their race, on their gender, on any of these aspects that were, it's red and then we're put into this box over here, to just be ourselves and bring the full force of that without having to expend the energy of being someone else. Acting. I mean, many of us had to act to go and do this. That's a job.
Yeah, absolutely. But let me just challenge that, because one thing is acting. The other one is being, a person of 360 degrees. I don't want to say playing roles, but engaging in different roles, horses for courses. So, of course, when I sit down with you, Lam, and we have a glass of wine, and I'm like, and, we kind of vent to each other of whatever. I can't bring, and nor do I want to bring that into my workspace. On the other hand, this is authentic, but it's as authentic as me going into work, going like, guys, we need to do something. And I say good morning, I say goodbye. I'm observing my team. Are they good? Are they not good? That's also part of me. I don't feel that I am necessarily not authentic, but I am, of course, more professional.
I absolutely agree with that. And I perhaps to a lesser degree than you, I think I bleed around the edges a little bit more than that. But obviously my work environment allows for that. Our clients really, if you're working with people who are working on books, a lot of that is a therapeutic relationship. I mean, and so it's very intimate, it's very emotionally vulnerable. And so actually that side of what is often seen as non-professional for women, for us, is an absolute advantage in business because men, women, anyone coming into it, publishing a book is incredibly vulnerable and nerve-wracking for folks. And so for us to bring that compassion, that extra listening, the sort of nurturing, is I think one of our superpowers as Girl Friday, and it is most often remarked upon. People leave and say, I felt absolutely cared for and safe. But I do know that, and I've had people come to work for me in different environments who said, this is the first time something as simple as I could talk about my children at work, or I could come in and talk about my vacation or be encouraged to take a vacation. And that was not time spent away and that you had to do a penance coming back, but encouraged, because if we don't do that, we can't be our full selves.
I so agree. That really resonates with me totally, because I always think that, we are all rubber bands, and we are, as humans, we move in cycles. So if you study, for example, you need to really study and know something. You have the time where you feed your brain, but just because you're doing something else is not that the brain is not working. Actually, it uses that off time, the rubber band being stretched and now relaxed. It uses that relaxation time to file things away quite nicely and neurologically really build up what your memory then becomes.
Yes. No, that's absolutely true. And at work, my co-founder and I would often take walking meetings.
Yes.
And our goal, we need to get back to it. But initially, when we started Girl Friday, we used to take every Friday and go hiking together. And that was when we talked about the structure of the company and the future and our goals and what new could we do. And it's during those moments when you are free to, blue sky thinking and to do that sort of unique strategy and be that sort of glass of wine with each other at the same time as you're having these, business thoughts.
No, I think this is so magic. I always say mornings are magic. And what I think I mean by that, what you were just saying we went hiking every Friday, and that's where we had our ideas, is exactly that. I always create when I'm actually off my desk, and I execute when I'm on my desk.
Yes.
Yeah. And I just think, when I just preparing for our interview, you kind of walk around the house and walk around wherever I walk around and go, So, and now I had so many ideas. I'm like, oh my God, let me just jot this down. And then now we're at the moment of execution. Of course, there's creativity in our talk. Now, this is maybe not the most representative, example, but really the kind of, why do people think, oh, I had that idea for that book under the shower, or I started composing when I was wherever, because you think you're not engaging, but you are. And I think being happy, in that sense, creates then also a better outcome.
Absolutely. I mean, I think for so long, especially the American work ethic is if you're happy, you're slacking. That means you're doing something wrong. And to me, that is the most outrageously wrong-headed concept on the planet. Yes, you can use people up and spit them out and, ring this, but imagine what you could have gotten from them. Yeah. Imagine if they stayed with you. Exactly. Imagine if they wanted to, if they felt, dignity and empowerment, what they can do for you. It seems so elementary to me, but at once it's also so antithetical to how we view ourselves as workers. If we're not at least a bit stressed and a bit unhappy, are we really doing our best?
Yeah, lunch is for losers. That's the first thing I heard when I started in the finance business. Like, lunch is for losers. I'm like, excuse me, lunch is my main meal of the day. If I don't have lunch, I'm a loser. It's like the wrong equation.
I can only imagine that. I mean, I am lucky enough to work in a creative field where I think we get a bit more latitude, but women I know who work in fields like yours, I think it's much more difficult. And I think you still face pressures that women who work with my husband face, pressures that I don't have to, which is part of the reason why I think that's also behind, going back to our earlier question about entrepreneurship. My partner and I left traditional publishing because we were being faced with these same false choices. And we just said, we think we can do better, and went out on our own to make the kind of company that we want. And I'm hoping that doesn't have to be true for everyone, that you can work in a large company across different fields, and everyone should be able to have that option. But for right now, I think it's this sort of little rebellion that we can, or a revolution, I guess. A rebellion is unsuccessful. A revolution about leaving and creating our own space and showing other people it can be done.
Yeah. So what went through your mind, also, your emotions, when you finally made the decision out of the corporate world into becoming a true entrepreneur and building up a company?
Well, I'm very happy that we were a bit of accidental entrepreneurs. I think if we would have known how much work it was going to be, that I don't know that we would have again taken that leap as lively as we did. But I was facing the birth of my second child, and I couldn't do it anymore. And when faced between keeping this job and spending time with my children, which was the choice I was having to make, that was an easy choice. And obviously I was lucky. My husband was still working, so I was able to make that choice. And that was true for Ingrid too. But we were blissfully ignorant about what we didn't know. But what we did know is that we loved working together, and we've always worked together. She's been my work wife for decades.
Beautiful. And
we complement one another. We knew that we had skills to bring, and that we could continue to serve the community, and that we thought that no matter what that looked like, we could do that on our own terms, and hopefully then provide those same, the same, not luxury, but the same freedoms to anyone who came to work with us. And so I didn't really feel like I had any other choice at the time, and we've learned so much along the way, but it was so freeing. I can't even tell you the weight of, we just believed it will come. Yeah. We will build it. And that worked for us.
And you did, and it worked for you. Now, you mentioned skills, and then you mentioned we had to learn. So if you had to define it also for our audience, which would you say are the three main skills that were your linchpin skills, which any female, now we talk about female entrepreneurs, need to bring, even if it starts just with a mindset? And what were the three key things you had to learn to then, execute the dream into a true business?
Well, I think the first was to stay humble and curious, because definitely the skills that I brought, I'm an excellent editor, I'm an excellent writer. That's what I brought into it. I was not necessarily an excellent business owner, and I went back later and got an MBA because I was like, well, this is not what I'm doing right now. My job as a CEO requires different skills of me that I didn't learn getting an English degree. And so staying open to, yes, I've successfully run a business and I can do better. And there are other skills that I need to acquire, to do my job better and to continue doing that. And so both of us have really stayed humble and very curious. I think I hate to put this number two, but also people first has always worked for us. And I consider that true, whether it's our clients or whether it's our team members. And so you can say people before profit. I love having both. I'm not saying that I do not want to be profitable.
I think they're mutually inclusive and interdependent.
Absolutely.
No profit, no people, no people, no profit. So there's
Absolutely.
nothing wrong in keeping the universe in a human resource and financial resource balance, if I may express it that way.
No, I absolutely agree with you. And that's beautifully put. And it also makes it incredibly easy which I guess leads into number 3, which is always do business by your values. And so having those in congruence I don't really wrestle with what is the right decision. I don't stay up at night because I've made a business decision that doesn't sit well with me, or that put other people in jeopardy, or that I felt I made a deal with the wrong person.
Compromising on some sort of level.
Yeah, just no. I mean, the answer has been no. We produce a product that is beautiful for the world. I help people with their creative output, and I also hopefully help grow a team and encourage them professionally, and they get to grow and blossom and help me, and I learn so much from them. So just being making those decisions in line with my morality, with my ethics, with my values, it makes it joyful.
No, yeah, and extremely productive. So I recap. So basically the skills that you had as an editor and writer, then people first, and the values that you would not compromise or pervert for anything, because that is the authenticity that you bring. Yes. That is the LAM aspect. Okay. And when you say what the 3 things were you had to learn, running a business.
Absolutely, running a business. And I learn
for money
every day.
Exactly, asking for money or asking for help. What else? What else was the other side where you got like, oh, okay, creativity is not enough, and maybe numbers is not enough? What was this third thing you would say you had?
Well, also staying open to change and being willing to change, and especially, I mean, I think that served. I think we had an easier time adapting during COVID because we already had people approach us and say, I want to move here. Can I keep my job? Yes, you can. So we'll figure out a way to make that work. So now we have people across the country. Well, that's not the easiest thing, but we've learned and we make that work. And then the publishing environment changes every day. So then we have to shift and adapt to that. So that adaptability and staying open to change and looking at it as opportunity rather than a stressor, I think has also been really key.
Let's talk a little bit about the publishing environment, because you said what we give also to our authors, these creative, artistic souls, potentially, we listen to them, we empathize with them, we work with them, we shepherd them, we carry them through the process. I mean, when I wrote my book, and with my publisher, with my editor, was very, very close. And it was great because she always gave me guidance. And yes, I felt looked after, and going, if I have her guidance, then it will work out. But absolutely, if anybody thinks that writing a book is romantic, think again. Yes. And it does things to your bottom you don't want to know. It gets
oh my gosh
flat. Sitting hours and hours and going like, okay, I have to do this now. So tell me a little bit more about your approach, how you actually work with your authors, before we get into the structure of publishing today and how it actually has changed also due to technology.
Yes. Well, I mean, speaking of entrepreneurs, that is, if I could give every writer, want to be writer, aspiring author, a piece of advice, it's that the second you write a book, you are an entrepreneur. That book is your product. You need to have a business plan around it, as formal or informal as you want that to be. You need to publicize and market your product. You need to invest in the development of your product and make it the very best it can be. And there's nothing wrong with thinking about a book as a product. That doesn't make it That doesn't mean it's not art or expression or creativity. Or for some people, it's not. For some people, it is the expression of their brand. It is thought leadership. It's, there are as many types of books as there are people in the world. But this sitting in an ivory tower, writing with your plume as genius floods you. If I could do anything to dispense with that notion of what it means to write a book and publish it, and I would do anything to make that happen.
You're making it right now because you're saying it right now. Let's just say, listen, guys out there.
It's so true.
Yeah,
it's so true. And it's this very storied industry that has sort of built a reputation of, we're not really business people. We're,
above that. Yeah.
Well, we're all both of those things. And every author is a business person. And say it loud and proud. That's a fantastic thing. That's amazing.
Yeah, no, I think so too. And I just was talking to a friend of mine last weekend, and I think she wrote already 3 books. And she said, yeah, but I can't afford writing these books after a while. I'm like, what did I miss in the equation? What do you mean it costs you money to write a book? Of course. Every book I write costs me about 10 to 15,000 simply because I have to do this and that and this and that. I'm like, hang on, but you're the creator. Doesn't the publisher look after you? Don't they spend marketing dollar? Don't they look at the target audience, where to do? Not anymore. Things have moved on and changed. It actually costs me up front quite a bit before I may get anything. I get fame, potentially, but, product or no product, the journey has shifted.
It has shifted, and it's definitely true. I mean, and at the root of it is that this is a business. And so for traditional publishers who you think of them paying in advance against your royalties, they take on the costs of production, of printing, of publicizing all that. And for that, they take most of your royalties. And so they will pay you 8.5%. There are a number, and unless you're a really big name for them, it just makes good business sense. They're not going to spend tons of time because you're not going to make them tons of money. I mean,
but they're still publishing you, though. I mean,
they are still publishing you. Yes. And for some people, that is the best choice. And absolutely, if you have capital coming in instead of expending capital to produce your book, for some people, and also someone choosing you and curating your book, there are a lot of wonderful things about that. You will probably still be counted on to market and publicize your own book. That is absolutely not going to change.
Sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, but then there are also, so for the spectrum, there are hybrid publishers where you take on the cost, the author pays for the production costs and printing costs, but then you may receive half to 3/4 of your royalties, even more than that. Yeah. So if you feel you have a really good, if you're a marketing machine and you're going to hustle and you're going to get those books sold, you can make more money potentially in that model on a per book basis. And then and hybrid publishers also, your book will appear in bookstores, in all of the distribution channels that you think of as a Penguin Random House putting their book out. It'll be in Target, it'll be in Walmart, and then independent publishers take advantage of the fact that most books are sold online, and your book will be available and printed and look beautiful the moment someone orders it. You pay for the production as much or as little as you want. It is available, and 100% of those proceeds are yours.
So what is your advice to a first-time writer?
I don't think I have monolithic advice. I would say do your due diligence. So it would greatly depend on the size of your platform. Do you know who your audience is, and do you have a way of connecting with them? What genre is your book? Romance books fly off the virtual shelves. That is a fantastic type of book. Genre fiction is really excellent online. Literary fiction, other different genres, not as much. For some people, your book is very visual or the format is important. And so if your buyer needs to encounter that in order to be swayed, then you might want to have your book in bookstores and in physical environments where someone will encounter it. So I would just say really get good consulting on what is the best path for you, because there is not one single path.
There's not one single path. And as you were now talking about fiction, there's of course nonfiction, which is, I guess, a totally different animal as well, to then decide if a publisher, or if that is something really you can use as a self-publisher, if you have also the business network, and it might sell that way, I wonder.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. And we have a lot of our clients are people who their book is an extension of themselves and their brand. And so I guess the other thing I didn't mention is the trade-off between the person who's paying for production is the person who's going to have control, because they're taking risk. And so with a traditional publisher, you may need to make some compromises about your title, about the content, about the packaging. An independent publisher, you are absolutely in total control, with advice from experts, hopefully. So there's also timeline and control factors that go into that.
You see, I'm really happy that you say that, because it reminds me also of a conversation which I had with a friend of mine who wrote a fiction book. And she went down the road of self-publishing, and she traveled across almost the globe to find the right paper, the coloring, the setting, the everything.
That's incredible.
It's so meticulous. I'm like, wow. And we had this discussion over and over. And I said, well, why would you do self-publishing? Well, because I don't want to do all the work. It's my idea. It's my writing. It's my hours, and somebody else earning so much, and I get just a sliver. Now, and I'm thinking, all right, am I going to risk a friendship here or not? So I decided to keep the friendship intact, but my inner thoughts, and I share them with you and whoever is watching us here, between you and I and the Land Post, is that I thought the businesswoman in me comes through, and I rather have like 5% of something than 100% of nothing, because guess what? That book didn't fly. That book sits nicely printed, I don't know how many copies, and has been bought, yes, by friends as a token of we love you, you're our friends, and of course we support you. A bit like, this, I don't want to say pity buying, but certainly an act of admiration, great, but it's not selling. And I just wonder, to establish your credibility and establish yourself as an author. Now, if I go to a publisher and say, hey, I've already released with, Bocconi University and their publishing house, a nonfiction book, they go like, cool, fine. You're a credible author. Somebody took you seriously. When can we go and embark on the next project? Right? Yes. Did I earn anything? No. Do I care? No. But do I have a name out there as an author? I do. Mm-hmm. And that, I think, is, for me at least, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Lam, that is so much more worth than 20 or 50 or whatever cents more in my pocket.
Well, and that is the trade-off. So for some, and I will say that your poor friend is embarking on one of the most difficult things, which is being a first-time, I'm assuming, author of fiction. And there are 4,500 books published every single day.
What?
So I think
4,500 every single day in the States. We're talking only in the States.
I don't believe it is only in the States.
Oh, globally. Well, it's still a lot.
I believe that is true. But it's 4,500 a day. And so for anyone, I would say that's a lot of competition.
That's a lot of competition.
How are they going to find your book? She could be the most amazing writer on the planet, but if they can't find your book and they don't know about it, then how will anyone ever buy it? And so that to me is, if your primary motivation for publishing is to make money, that should really be your very first question, is who are my buyers and how am I going to connect with them and how am I going to persuade them to make the sale? And so that's always the very first question I would ask anyone is, what path should you choose? What are your goals? And, most fiction that's purchased by traditional publishers also doesn't sell. Most books purchased by traditional publishers sell under 1,500 copies.
And that is because of the competition, or
there's so much competition, and it's just really difficult for us to encounter the book, and then we need to encounter it 7 times usually in order then to even be persuaded to make that sale. But then what is going to make me choose your book over this other book? What format am I going to choose it in? That's also, if all of my people are going to listen to it on audio, I better have an audio version available. Or does it make sense for me to do an ebook? Should I have all of them available to capture the most sales? Am I doing advertising? Am I doing, so it's really complex. That's why I say you really are. So she took care of one piece of it, and the designers would love the emphasis that she put on that. But
it's beautiful. I mean,
I'm sure it's gorgeous.
Heavy.
And
like, sorry.
No, but if no one can find it, then that beauty is almost for naught. I mean,
I guess I totally see that. And if I was a potential publisher, I'd go like, okay, you want to even half self-publish, hybrid or what have you. I'd say, so how many followers do you have on LinkedIn? How many followers do you have on Insta? And, or do you have a huge YouTube channel? So if they say, well, I've got 1.5 million followers, or I say like, okay, yeah, you have platforms. You're already kind of, your brand as in a person, not author, but as in a person, is somehow there, and you kind of add onto you as a product, different products, be it, a book or whatever, auxiliary product you build around the book, which you can also do. Now, is that true, Lam? Once a publisher told me that 2 things always fly, and that is romance stories, and I think you hinted at it earlier on. And the other one is total fantasy, like these vampire stories or, any kind of zombie stories. And I said, seriously, is that all that sells? And is that A, true? And B, how do you select the sujet, but also the writer when you look at potential opportunities?
So we work with both independent clients and also hybrid clients. And the hybrid clients, we are curating those and adding those to our list. And few of those are fiction. If they are fiction, it is true that certain genres, those are wonderful genres. Young adult is also selling very well because adults also, myself included, read young adult novels and enjoy them. We look for people who don't just have one book. So if it's fiction, obviously a series, people have, especially now that you can binge books just like you do with Netflix. If they liked your first book, they're waiting for the next one.
Sequel. So like
sequel. Yes.
Get it.
Yes. So that is something that we would be looking for. And obviously, the more experience someone has as a writer and the more name recognition. So they're building their brand as a writer with more work out there and satisfying these consumers. But for us, we do look for someone who wants to be a good publishing partner, who understands that this is about entrepreneurship and they're prepared to do their best to sell their story to the world and to the consumers. But also, we want to believe in it. What is it adding to the conversation, whatever genre it is? And so it could be whether that's a gift title, whether it's fiction, or we've done some really lovely nonfiction books that I have learned a lot reading. And so we just want it. What is it adding that's a little special something? And maybe a different type of author that traditional publishers might not have looked at, because that's very important to me and to Girl Friday about let's diversify the voices the people that we're hearing from and the stories that they're talking about.
Okay, so what are traditional publishers compared to what you're doing?
So a traditional publisher, and they are consolidating every year, there are more consolidations. So there used to be a lot of large publishing houses. So Penguin, which is now Random Penguin Random House, or so all of these, or a Harper Collins. So someone that you think of as a very traditional New York publishing house. They have acquiring editors who usually work with agents. So someone has a literary agent, they acquire the books, they handle all of that for them. They add it to different lists or imprints. So they curate the books within these really large conglomerates. But they're really banking on a handful of mega bestsellers every year, or, the James Pattersons, the people that you might, that everyone is picking up and to read on the airplane, or Michelle Obama. There are some people, that are going to sell a lot of books, and that is absolutely true.
But it was a great book, I have to say. I found a lot of intrinsic value there.
And that's when it's beautiful, is when it's a book that is worthy and sells all of these copies. Well, worthy, see, now I'm being judgmental there, but
that's okay. That's okay.
I agree with you.
You publish a book, you'll be judged, right? I mean,
yes, it's so true. And so the books, we're just providing a different avenue for people who we do collaborate on mission and on the story itself and title and packaging. So we're collaborating together. It gives people a bit more control. Mm-hmm. So some people are very concerned about that. And they also want to be able to direct their publishing journey a bit more. And we share the risk with them we produce the book and offer all of these experts, but we offset our risk and are able to pay larger royalties on the back end because they are paying for capital. They're paying for the production up front. They're providing.
What about idea development? Because I come to you maybe with an idea, but it's kind of like it's an idea, and I think I might know the structure, and I think I might also know this could be book 1 of 1, 2, 3. And I'm now talking about nonfiction. To what extent are you also a sparring partner for maybe not necessarily novel authors, but people that want to continue writing?
We do that for people who are writing novels and nonfiction. So we start from the very beginning. Both Ingrid and I come from a background of helping people develop those ideas. We were acquiring editors at a smaller feminist press. And so oftentimes it was a book about X. And so then we are helping them develop structure. We love that part. And so that's really an honor to be able to share our expertise in what would work best in the genre, in the marketplace. And so we pair people with book coaches at the very beginning, developmental editors. Yep. We have people who work with people to ideate and really develop those. So we from that moment through, full production. So it's really fun to be able to meet people where they are and help them, make that vision come true.
Yeah, I find this co-creation, I find this working together and actually, being open to whatever their idea is, and then kind of put it into, I don't want to say structure, but kind of like co-develop it and really try to close the circle. A little bit like I do as an investor. I have this entrepreneur and they're a young company, and they allow me to pick up on the genius idea they have and then kind of say, okay, and if you do that and that and that, according to my experience, we could kind of, adjust. And there my pen flies. Another one.
Always surrounded. Excellent.
And that is the satisfactory part, because there I would have LAM's DNA partially in my book, and you would see also how this is where we kind of fine-tuned or where we co-developed. And I think this is this together, this symbiosis, which you then see in the end product, is of extreme value.
I agree. I think that's wonderful. I hadn't thought about that before with the parallel with your industry, but that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. One of the last questions, we're not ready yet. I'm not letting you go yet, Lam. Did you ever think that Harry Potter, good old J.K. Rowling, would ever fly the way it did in all shapes, forms, merchandise, whatever? Did you ever believe in that product, as you called it before?
That's an interesting question. I mean, it is sometimes totally shocking to me which books become a phenomenon. And of course, everyone is always hoping it's your book. It's your book that you're attached to, that you've published that. And I actually came to Harry Potter a bit later than others. And I started to read the first and I was like, it's not for me. That was my first reaction. And since then, I have read and reread them all. I've watched all of the movies.
Yes.
And I adore them. And they do, knowing them as I do, I am not surprised, I guess, in the end, because the world building and the attributes of the characters and what she gave us to connect to and hope for. And, there's some very primitive good versus evil and the underdog, but the way she did it with all of those magical touches was really gifted. And so, I mean, the extent of that universe is insane and incredible and kind of unfathomable to me, almost like the Marvel universe is. As a mother of boy children, I've watched many, many Marvel movies.
Yes, poor thing. It's one of those that honestly.
I know. But I do think that it presents as this, it is what we want from story. It is transforming us and transporting us to this place and allowing us to interact with, we have good and evil. I mean, I can look on CNN right now and see a lot of good and evil happening right now, but this is a way for us to engage in a way that is more enjoyable, safer, and we sort of get to play out those battles in a different way. And that, to me, is the power of story. So
yeah,
she did it marvelously. So kudos to her.
Yeah, absolutely. I could not agree more with you, Lam, because I also came to Harry Potter late. Because I came to Harry Potter because everybody had read it and everybody talked about it. And I was like, oh my God, I feel so cut out. I want to be part of the conversation. So I said, okay, I better do my homework. And I started reading Harry Potter. And I was, at that time, I was still living in London. And gosh, he became my best friend. Like within, I think, latest in the second book, I said, I need to know what Harry does. And I'm getting now goosebumps. Jesus. No, but because he struck so many human chords. As you were saying, life is simple. We humans are actually quite simple. There's the good, there's the bad. There is, you will to survive, and then your empathy and the kindness, and then you're a victim one moment, and you try to be a hero. Sometimes you succeed, like long bottom. Sometimes you don't succeed, And I read the books. I read them also more than once. I have them even on DVD. So I was just wondering whether, as an adult, I would, read this kind of kid stories, but looking at or watching the films, this is sometimes a bit, borderline. Is it really for children? I thought it was quite scary. Another one I wanted to ask you, that's a penultimate question, and that is, now unravel for me the phenomenon of 50 Shades of Grey.
I knew you were going to. I can't.
Because this is TikTok.
I cannot. I can only guess because I haven't read it. I heard enough reports as to, I don't think it's a book that I would enjoy in its quality. I'm not even going to, I have no problem with its content or its, of its erotic nature, but I don't know. And it is the one example that is brought up in publishing circles over and it's.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. That's interesting.
It's a bit of although I guess it's not a bit of a mystery. I think that it did cross over it took a taboo and maybe fringe sexual element and allowed everyone to engage and learn and read about it. And so, but I don't.
No,
I would love to know the answer myself. And
I don't know.
know
Exactly.
someone who loved it, because I don't.
I tell you, I mean, I didn't read it. And the whole story about and why I ask you is a couple of things, because looking from it from the outside, I just thought, oh, really, this must be an incredible book about the sujet, as you were saying, the way, eroticism is being portrayed in a book and everybody talking about it. Oh, it's really, really hot. And when you read it, you get a bit, and it's wonderful. And I just thought, okay. So my husband, he said, I have to read this book. And I said, okay, you start reading this and I'm going to observe you, what happens to you physically whilst you're reading it.
We'll see if it's worth it.
So imagine this. So both of us in bed, I read my nonfiction as I usually do. And he starts reading this book again. And I look over and said, and what's happening? Says nothing. It's bloody boring. And then, and what's happening? And he's like 130 pages and closes the book and says, nah. And I said, so we have the proof of the phenomenon of marketing. So if you get, I'm sure it hit a chord with many, many readers. And please, with all due respect, but from an outsider that doesn't know anything about the business and is not even like an avid fiction reader, is that I just thought, God, they were everywhere. Everybody talked about it on all the platforms. And it kind of snowballed into, that's the book you must read. That's the book that is really going to do something to you, whatever that something is. Yeah. And then of course, my husband is not representative to the almost 9 billion people on the planet. However, it was hugely disappointing. Mm-hmm. And this is why I thought, okay, maybe you being in the business, perhaps you read it because it's always talked about till today. But the films also, I don't know. We watched, and I think the second one we walked out halfway through and said, like, yeah, maybe not.
No, I know. I mean, it is, things can go viral, books included, that are mystifying, or just not for everyone, or they go viral for a reason that isn't enough. I mean, so that sort of taboo nature for me, for you, for your husband, that's not enough. So I ask for more from my book, and maybe that wasn't what most people were like.
Yeah, exactly. That's absolutely fine. And you were saying earlier,
I agree.
Yeah, exactly. Not to be judged. And if anybody watches and just think, oh, what is Lam and Patricia on about? They're so arrogant. Okay, now we have an arrogant moment or whatever moment. But I didn't really see any reaction, so I didn't even watch read it, so didn't even read it. Now the last question, we are here. Oh my God, I have to let you go in a moment. So I would like to know, if you had to look back and talk to your 17-year-old self, what, from a entrepreneur point of view, female, mother, person, would you actually say are the 3 key lessons you have learned, be it in your professional but also in your private life, that expresses Lam as she is today?
17-year-old self. That's so, well, when I was 17, I thought that I wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon. So I have a tremor, actually, and I had wanted to go to medical school, and then they said there is no way. But there is beauty in that. Obviously, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And so you can have one dream, but you can also have many dreams. And so the expression of you doesn't have to follow necessarily the path that you first envisioned, or it might change many times. So be yourself, whoever that is, to the fullest expression of you, and that everyone is not just one thing. So I would say you are not just this one thing, and you have so many interests and talents, and you can express those. The world is open. The second thing, interestingly, I think about this all the time. My father was a dentist, and we all worked at his office, and he was a small business owner. I mean, he had a staff of 10 people. Most of them worked for him for decades. He used to hire people that he encountered on a day. They might sell him shoes, and he's like, she was extraordinary, and I want her, and I can. And so what he told us, and I recently said this to someone else, is you hire for people and you can always teach skills.
Yes. So nice. Okay. Number 2.
And So that was a lesson I did take in from my father when I was 17, and I still use it. And I'm so happy that is really that he imparted that to me. And I think the third thing is really seek out joy. And I think you should seek out joy with your family, with your friends, with your business, and it's possible. And it's not always there. I have certainly had not so joyful days.
Mm-hmm.
I am not saying this is all roses, but seeking the joy and believing that in and of itself is a worthy goal is enough. And by seeking the joy, you will spread that to others. I mean, oftentimes the most joy you get is from helping others, supporting others, sustaining them, not in a way that takes from you, but in a way that gives to you. And so that is the third thing I would say.
I love that, like the mindset of joy. So the first one was be open to basically your own evolvement. So one day you think the only thing that you want is to become a doctor, but then you evolve and, there's something, very different, more beautiful or beautiful, not to be compared in you, and let that happen. From your dad, hire for people, teach the skills, because you cannot teach people how to be people. Good or evil. I mean, they are the way they are. And unless they try to evolve themselves, nothing you can do. And the third one is, have the mindset of joy. Joy is, I heard the other day, when comparison starts, happiness ends. And I think that, I really, really like that sentence. And it is very true that, you can always find crap when you want to see it.
Exactly. But it's always there, right?
Exactly. But you can also find the good and the joy when you look for it. Same thing.
Absolutely. Amen.
Amen to that. Lam, thank you so much for this hour you spent with me and with the Mentory TV community. Thank you. Thank you. I think it's awesome what you're doing, and that whole approach, really circling whatever you do, be it on the female entrepreneur side, entrepreneurs, or the publishing side. It always really is with you, comes across that way. It's people first, and then we just build around whatever that person is into something that is long lasting and wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was delightful.
With or without the mindset. I love it. Thank you so much. And thank you, my dear Mentory TV community, for having joined us yet again for a great conversation, this time with Leslie Ann Miller and Lam. She's known for, and she is the CEO and co-founder of Girl Friday Productions. If you want to know more about what she does, who she is, and maybe join her on her own journey as well, everything will be down below, of course, in the description. And as usual, stay curious, and I see you next time.